Welcome to Transnational Competition Law course, and dear learner, and today we are going to discuss the role of the competition enforcement agencies in South Africa in terms of application of extraterritorial jurisdictions and the transnational competition law. And we will also see that what are the major achievements of the enforcement agencies on competition in South Africa, what happens to be the state of the capacity building, and what happens to be the state of affairs in matters of effective enforcement of the competition law. Vis-a-vis, we will look into the factors which led to the growth and evolution and growth of the competition enforcement agency in South Africa, what kind of challenges they are facing after the 3 decades of the economic liberalizations. Then we will try to see in a very holistic manner that as to what the South African competition laws and policy tries to achieve, happens to be the successes and failures, what are the promises, what are the pitfalls, and what are the portents of the South African competition law and policy. In that respect, dear learner and viewer, you can rightly recall my previous lecture about the competition law in South Africa, wherein we have discussed the entire historical annals of the South African economy, how despite all kind of the historical discrimination and the historical oddities of the time, the South African economy have come of age, how it has transgressed from the developed economy, how it resolved the issues of the income disparity, how it happens to curb on the high rates of unemployment, and then in that scenario, how the Competition Act of 1998, which is said to be the modern law on the competition in South Africa, serves the very basic purpose of not only the competition but try to fit into the entire economic ecosystem of the South Africa, which happens to herald economic liberalization. From that point of view, dear learner, you can rightly recall that we have discussed in detail about the South African economy, and as well as we have taken note of the economic liberalization and how the economic liberalization in South Africa happens to accord a kind of a prominent place to the competition, how it has valued the competition, and how they try to see the competition as a means of achievement of the innovation and intellect in the market and bringing some kind of innovation and the entrepreneurship in the market, how the competition and the value of competition try to aid some new dimension to the spawning economic growth, or it tries to see how the economic reform, economic liberalization objective can better be served if we have some very effective competition law. From that point of view, what we have seen, dear learner and viewer, that the Competition Act of 1998 has rightly tried to immerse into that economic environment and have focused on the economic efficiency as well as the independence of the institution. It has not only taken control of the merger issue and other anti-competitive activities on all competition concerns of the South Africa, but have been very successful in adjudicating of the competition law, enforcement of the competition law, and advancement of the competition law by restraining anti-competitive activities and lowering the prices and improving the quality of the goods and services. Thus, we have also observed in the last lecture that how the critical role of the Competition Act of 1998 happens to be a kind of a, an addition to the entire movement of the reform of the economy in the African continent. And in that way, we see that the South Africa serves as a guide to all other African countries. And the Competition Act of 1998 have created a kind of atmosphere wherein we find that the other African countries which were lagging behind and has been trailblazing in matters of having a competition law have switched over to the competition legislation in their domestic jurisdictions. In that way, the South African competition law has a very pivotal role to play, be that the law of regulations of monopolistic condition of 1955, be that the law on the Maintenance and Promotion of Competition Act of 1979. What we decipher that the South Africa is a country to be seen with a great interest, that their history of the competition laws and policy and enforcement is at least 75 years old, and then within the 75 years of the working of the competition law and enforcement in South Africa have given new shapes, new vista and new dimensions in the understanding of the competition law from the point of view of the extraterritorial application and as well as transnational application of the competition law, not only in Africa, not only in the African continent, not only in the BRICS nation, but as a global level. We have also examined in a very detail as to how the Competition Act of 1998 happens to be a modern law on the competition in South Africa. We have chiseled out its basic functions. We have tried to have a critical appraisal of the law in understanding the very broad object and reason of the reason which is underpinning the law. And we also examined that how the 1998 law happens to be a great achievement and an improvement with that of the law relating to regulation of Monopolistic Conditions Act of 1955 and the Maintenance and Promotion of Competition Act of 1979, along with what we see that how the 1998 law has been very successful in creating an independent competition tribunal to clarify the relationship between the general competition law as well as the regulatory agencies and bodies. And in that respect, we have also seen the overarching role of the Department of Economic Development vis-a-vis the Competition Commission and the Competition Tribunal, which has been handed down by the Competition Act 1998, its amendment in 2000 and as well in 2009. Then we have reflected on the broad features of the competition law of 1998 in matters of creating a kind of an ecosystem, creating and sustaining the competition in the market, creating a kind of a system where the competition concern should not try to have a detrimental impact on the domestic market of the South Africa and as well as the global market of the South Africa. Then we have traced out the purpose of creation of the Competition Commission under the Competition Act of 1998, and then we have overall examined its efficiency, its workability, and its working in matters of adjudication of the competition dispute. We have also taken note of its vivid structure consisting upon the commissioner and the deputy commissioner in promoting the competition in South Africa. With this, we will try to aid on in the present lecture that what we have learned during the last two lectures is the fact that how in the entire scheme of the adjudication and the enforcement of the competition law, which has been created by the Competition Act of 1998, which has been created by the Competition Act of 1998, Competition Amendment Act of 2000, Competition Amendment Act of 2009, and creating the edifice and structure of the Competition Commission along with the Commissionerate and Deputy Commissionerate and the Inspectorate and the enforcement, we will try to reflect that what is the role of the Department of Trade and Industry in promoting the competition in South Africa. In that respect, dear learner and viewer, we will try to understand that the Department of Trade and Industry in South Africa occupies a very prominent place in directing and in determining the course and direction of the competition policy, and thus we see that it has played a very pivotal role in developing a new competition policy framework through intense consultation with the expert and its meticulous engagement with all stakeholders of the market, to reach to a very comprehensive competition policy framework. So when we discuss the competition tribunal's role under the Competition Act or the Competition Commission's role under the Competition Act of 1998, and when we try to discuss the role and examine the contribution and the seminal significance of the commissioner and the deputy commissioner of the Competition Commission of the South Africa, it is nothing but imperative for us to have a critical look on the role and functions of the Department of Trade and Industry in heralding a very comprehensive competition policy framework with the consultation with the experts and as well as the stakeholder. What the Department of Trade and Industry have been doing in matters of the competition law reform, that is very important, and that importance lies first from starting from the basic framework of the competition policy and its proposal of the guidelines for competition policy, which tries to stimulate public debate on the competition. And the Department of Trade and Industry try to see that how the public consensus and the public consciousness and the public debate happens to contribute to the emergence and evolution of the competition policy and in the entire restructuring of the economy. From that point of view, dear learner and viewer, what we see the Department of Trade and Industry happens to emphasize on the importance of aligning trade and industrial policy, and it tries to see that how empowering emerging entrepreneurs and promoting competitiveness and efficiency in the market, it can be promoted within the framework of the competition policy. And in that respect, the Department of Trade and Industry seems to be very active in giving some kind of a flip and direction and in that respect, the Department of Trade and Industry happens to be very active in giving a flip and a kind of a direction by a self-evident advocacy, meaning thereby as it has started from the premise of soliciting the public debates and comments involving all kind of a consultation with the experts and the stakeholder in designing the competition policy. It also tries to align with the industrial policies and empowering the emerging entrepreneurs and promoting competitiveness and efficiency. That object can only be achieved if the Department of Trade and Industry happens to see that the competition law is based on a self-evident advocacy, and the self-evident advocacy means that the competition law primarily focuses on economic efficiency and it applies very meaningfully by politically independent bodies, and which happens to be very suitable to the South Africa's developed industrial and service sector. So that kind of consensus and awareness, along with the kind of the advocacy which is required, the Department of Trade and Industry happens to do in the South African jurisdictions. And finally, what Department of Trade and Industry have focused on the purview and the functional ambit of the competition policy is the fact that it has enhanced ownership participation by having a very inclusive and a diversified approach by including black individuals in the economy and particularly in the manufacturing sector. So the goal of economic growth should also be the inclusive economic growth. That kind of the gap which were manifested in the South African economy will have been critically examined by the Department of Trade and Industry, and then the sense of inclusiveness which it has built in the South African competition law, that deserves a special mention. Dear learner, after examining in depth the role of the Department of Trade and Industry vis-a-vis the Commissionerate and the Deputy Commissionerate and the Competition Commission in matters of enforcement of competition law in South Africa, we will straightway try to see that as to how the South African Competition Act of 1988 reacts to the issue of extraterritorial application of the competition law. Then on that count, we see that in the context of South Africa, the Competition Act of 1998 applies extraterritorially to economic activities that have an effect within the Republic. This means that the Competition Commission has the authority to investigate and regulate the conduct or transaction that may occur outside South Africa, but still the impact competition within the country. So the Competition Act tries 1998 aims to ensure a fair competition within South African market, even if activities in question originate from foreign entities or have an international implication. Thus, by looking at the South African law on that point of view, what we see that the Competition Act, we have examined the very effectiveness and the viability of the Competition Act from different perspectives, be that enforcement, be that be that the execution, or be that a kind of a body which can serve as a think tank to have a constant sense of reform and gradual refinement. We are also examining the Competition Act 1998 from the standpoint of the extraterritorial application of the competition law. What we find that the Competition Act 1998 well applies extraterritoriality by asserting jurisdiction over conduct or transaction that occur outside South Africa but have an impact on competition within the country. This means that the Competition Commission of the South Africa can investigate and can take action against any anti-competitive practices, merger that affect the competition in South Africa, or we can say that if they originate from the foreign entities or take place in other jurisdiction, in all those cases, the Competition Commission of South Africa happens to enforce the competition law beyond the country's border and try to ensure a fair competition in the interest of South African markets and consumer. Then, from that standpoint, we have also examined the Competition Act 1998, and it well survived the test from the point of view of the extraterritorial application of the competition law vis-a-vis the transnational application of the competition law. And dear learner, with a critical appraisal of the Competition Act of South Africa from the multidimensional approach, what we can now conclude is the fact that how and what way the South African Competition Act of 1998 vis-a-vis the Competition Commission and the Competition Tribunal and Department of Trade and Industry working in unison are facing the challenges of the competition in South Africa. In that respect, we have underlined to see that some of the major challenges which are posed before the competition law, the Competition Commission, the Competition Tribunal, the and the Department of Trade and Industry, then what we find, the first challenge comes from the compensation dispute, wherein we find that the members of the tribunal faced the dispute over the compensation, and that compensation is something, that issue, which happens to be a kind of a constant phenomena by the private practice, or what you can say the private entities or the public entities. We see that there happens to be the large number of cases under these competition commissionerate and the tribunal are dealing with the compensation dispute. Now it happens to be a challenge for this authority, competition authority, how best they're going to manage the entire issue of compensation disputes in matters of anti-competition competition violations. And then we have the other problem which are coming across happens to be is the capacity constraint, meaning thereby relying on part-time services, or we have a panel for complex non-merger cases, and the manpower, the experts who are looking into the cases of investigation and in the inquiry, that capacity constraint have been witnessed so many times in the entire adjudication process. We have the third important challenge, which comes from the South Africa's legalistic enforcement culture, which poses a real challenge in obtaining the information and conducting effective investigation. So the information asymmetries and the information blockade and information flow in matters of handling all kinds of legal disputes pertaining to the competition law seems to be the another challenge. Then we have few more challenges. The one is that what is the litigational skill of the competition advocates, competition practitioner, competition lawyer, and what tactical skill are to be imparted and what tactical litigational skill have to be imbibed and inculcated in the entire workforce or the legal personnel or the paralegal personnel in matters of the competition dispute. That is also one of the biggest issues to come across. The other challenges happens to be the confidentiality issue, meaning thereby the confidentiality of the entire inquiry procedure of or investigation procedure and the hearing procedure happens to be of great relevance, because unless we have some degree of confidentiality, then any kind of a leakage of the information happens to have a very ripple effect on the domestic as well as the foreign market. And then the awareness among the market in promoting the market transparency and public awareness of the competition law or the advocacy of the competition law is something very crucial challenge and requires a continuous effort. And lastly, we have problems and challenge of the merger control, meaning thereby in the entire process of the merger analysis and action, there are significant focus with challenges in balancing the competition concern and the economic analysis, and then balancing of all the competing sets of interest in the merger control is one of the biggest challenge. And with this we see that not only the compensation dispute, capacity constraint, legal challenges, tactical litigation skills, confidentiality issue, market awareness, and merger control. So these are some odd 7 kinds of challenges which we have tried to cull out of the study of the entire competition law in South Africa, more specifically the Competition Act of 1998, along with the functioning of the competition laws and policy within the framework of the Competition Commission, Competition Tribunal, and Competition Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner, and the Department of Trade and Industry. With this, however, we can say, despite some kind of the limitations, as a whole, the South African competition law enjoys a history of 75 years of the promulgations and 75 years of legislative history, which starts rightly from the regulation of Monopolistic Condition Act 1955 and Maintenance and Promotion of Competition Act 1979, along with the Competition Act of 1998 and its regular upgrades and amendment of the Competition Amendment Act in 2000 and Competition Amendment Act in 2009, and along with its enforcement structure of the Competition Commission, Commissioner, and the Deputy Commissionerate and Department of Trade and Industry, seems to be a case that have taken care of all the competition concerns by taking recourse to the global competition law, as well as it has an inherent provisions relating to what we can call is the fact that extraterritorial application of the competition law and the transnational application of the competition law. And we hope that the South African competition law have all requisite capacity and resilience to serve the test of the time, and thus it can be having a very meaningful addition to the entire discourse and diametrics of the competition law, especially the extraterritorial application of competition law and the transnational application of the competition law in the BRICS country, and thus the discussion on the competition laws and policy of the South Africa completes our holistic understanding of the Brazil, the Russia, the India, the China, and South Africa, and taken together, we can say the cumulative impact of the transnational competition law in the BRICS region is really a kind of a subject which is to be studied with great interest, have with a very dispassionate considerations and understanding, and any kind of understanding on the transnational competition law course. I hope the understanding of the transnational application of the competition law on the BRICS country serves as a kind of an important segment and happens to have many kinds of takeaways that eventually refurbishes and add to the richness of the jurisprudence on the transnational competition law. With this, dear learner, I conclude and I wish you a very happy learning on the transnational competition law. Thank you very much.